Tick-tock goes the clock, and it's screaming at NASCAR for earlier start times. That's evident by what we saw at Dover this weekend. Also, speaking of a ticking clock, is Martin Truex Jr.'s time with NASCAR almost done? This week's episode of Above the Yellow Line was delivered to you by DoorDash. Get more to your door with DoorDash. Hey everyone, it's Taylor, and welcome back to Above the Yellow Line, the show where we talk all about the NASCAR Cup Series. We got a few things to get to today. Speaking of Martin Truex Jr., we got to talk about Dover, of course, the DuraMAX Drydene 400. Then we got to go into our preview of this coming weekend for Throwback Weekend at Darlington. But for now, let's get into our Drydene 400 results. As we know, the DuraMAX Drydene 400 was scheduled for 3 p.m. on Sunday, got rained out around lap 69. Denny Hamlin was leading, and then we called it off until Monday at noon. We're going to talk about that, but nevertheless, I heard the racing that we saw Monday, what I was able to see as well, was pretty spectacular, with Chase Elliott winning on his first oval course since Phoenix in 2020. This marks his 14th career victory in the Cup Series, and personally, in my opinion, this now makes him a threat for the title. He usually wins a little bit like in the middle of the summer, and we're seeing him winning early on this season, so for me, this puts him in championship contention for real this time. Not just because he was leading in points, but because we know when Chase Elliott gets a win and his team can be mistake-free, there's another one coming very soon. And with road courses coming up in the schedule for the summer, I can guarantee you Chase Elliott will definitely win another one. But here's a look at the rest of your top 10. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. second, Ross Chastain is in third, Christopher Bell fourth, Alex Bowman fifth, Kyle Larson sixth, Kyle Busch seventh, Chris Buescher eighth, ninth is Kevin Harvick, and 10th is Eric Jones. We talked about Chase Elliott being a championship threat. Let's talk about the guy who finished in position number 3, Ross Chastain. Jimmy McMurray put this perfectly on Race Hub. He's the guy that's probably going to be in the championship 4 fighting for a championship. I mentioned this probably an episode ago, 2 episodes ago, and I kind of jumped the gun on it a little bit with it being between him and William Byron being championship favorites. For me, this being his 7th top 5 this season at a new team, this makes him an absolute threat for the championship. Ross Chastain having another good weekend, though it didn't come without controversy. I know he spun out Martin Truex Jr. fighting for position on the last lap. Nevertheless, he needs to learn some etiquette, but a championship favorite indeed. Now let's talk about the guys that finished in 5th and 7th. Alex Bowman 5th, Kyle Busch 7th. The class of the field for most of Monday unfortunately caught a caution on pit road at the very wrong time with AJ Allmendinger losing a wheel. Now, they were able to take a wave around to get back on the lead lap, but they were not able to reposition themselves in the lead. And of course, like I said at Dover, track position is everything, and unfortunately, they weren't able to work their way back up to P1 and P2, though they still had a really good finish based on where that caution fell in the race. I know I chose Alex Bowman to win this race, and I was so mad when that happened, and I was also mad for Kyle Busch. It was his birthday on Monday, so he usually doesn't lose on his birthday, and then of course, that can get jinxed and everything, so I thought Kyle Busch was going to win it Monday, but of course, with that caution again, didn't happen. Last 2 guys to talk about within the top 10, Chris Buescher in P8 and Eric Jones in P10. I honestly haven't seen them talked about as much as I think they should be this season. Eric Jones putting in really consistent results for Richard Petty Motorsports. And then RFK Racing's driver, Chris Buescher, doing so well this weekend. Not only did he get the pole, he also got points in Stage 1 and Stage 2 and a top 10 finish. For me, that is a win for him this weekend. And I hope we can see them being more consistent throughout the season and possibly being around a 16 potential in the championship fight. I don't think they're going to pass anywhere after that, and watch myself jinx myself maybe a little bit on that fact if they can continue to grow and maybe get a win or something like that. But nevertheless, I think one of those drivers, Buescher or Jones, is bound to get into the round of 16 potentially if other drivers aren't able to show up. Now looking outside the top 10 at our notable finishers, first off, right outside the top 10, Justin Haley in P11. Really good day for him and that College crew. I wasn't expecting that, quite honestly, but a really good surprise. Then we got to talk about Truex getting spun on the last lap, coming in 12th position. I talked about race etiquette with Ross Chastain, and in my opinion, the more enemies Ross Chastain makes, the harder of a time he's going to have in the playoffs, because no one's going to treat him fairly. No one's going to want to play nice with him, so for me, that makes Truex another enemy to Ross Chastain. Adding onto the list, I would say probably Ryan Blaney at this point might be an enemy with him. Chase Elliott, maybe they had really good restarts, and they both fought back and forth, bumping Doris a little bit. So Chastain, if I could have a piece of advice for him, don't make enemies, make friends, and also know when it's time to be content with a top 4 finish, with a 4th place finish or top 5 finish, instead of pushing the issue. 21st place, Denny Hamlin. I can't keep talking about him having bad weekends because it's getting exhausting at this point, but I hate to see it for him. He was in 4th place when Cody Ware got into the wall, a lapped car, spun him out, and then collected Denny Hamlin in the process. I hate seeing them have consistently bad weekends. I know him and then his team that he owns, 2311 Racing, they're not having good times at all this whole season, like as a whole. So I would like to see Denny Hamlin pick it up, but in my opinion, if there was no winner-in format, I don't see Denny Hamlin making the round of 16 at all this season. He is so far behind where his teammates are. He needs to do better and at least probably get 2 more wins in order to get him enough playoff points to be confident or I guess content in the round of 16 that he's going to be moving forward. Last but not least, in 26th place, Ryan Blaney. Important to talk about this because he got his 4th stage win of the season. That's the most of any driver this season so far. Moving up in the points ranking, he is still 2nd in points right now. We'll look at that in a second, but not a really good day for Ryan Blaney. He's really not good at the tire management tracks, and Dover was definitely one of those today, and it has historically been as well. So I knew this would be a little bit of a struggle for him, but nevertheless, kind of a crappy day for Ryan Blaney in P26. Now it's time to look at points from the drivers and from the above the yellow line crew. I gotta say, I am no longer in first, but at least I'm tied for 2nd, so that at least accounts for something. After I chose Alex Bowman to win this race, like I said, 28 points for me. Also with 28 points is Brandon Lowe, with Martin Truex Jr. being his pick. Then Adam has 29 points with Kyle Larson as his pick. And then Dom, unfortunately, totally missed this weekend with Denny Hamlin having 27 points. We are all very close in points, though, which is a good sign. That means anyone could really take a leap on the lead if they would choose to, coming up in the next few weeks. All right, now it's time to look at our drivers' points, and this time I'm going to focus on the playoff leaderboard. Leading the charge for the playoffs is William Byron with 2 wins. He also has 13 playoff points. Right behind him is Ross Chastain, also 2 wins, 11 playoff points. Then Elliott with 1 win, leading the drivers' point standings right now, 7 playoff points. Then looking at the drivers that have not won a race yet but are in the playoffs is Ryan Blaney, plus 109 to the good, way ahead of Martin Truex Jr., who is right behind him, plus 77 to the good. Then if we're looking at the driver in 16th place in points, if everything stopped right now, he would be in the playoffs. We have Eric Jones, plus 3 to the good. But if we're looking outside that playoff cutoff line, the first guy that would be out of the fight is Austin Dillon, minus 3. So it's going to be between Eric Jones and Austin Dillon trying to fight for that spot. Right behind Austin Dillon is Tyler Reddick, minus 13 to the good. Then we go so on and so on. Suarez, Buescher, Kurt Busch, Bubba Wallace, all right now outside playoff contention. All right, you all know what time it is. We looked at our results. Now it's time to look at the performance of the week, our above the yellow line MVP presented by SRI Performance. Of course, from us here at Above the Yellow Line, I gotta choose an LVP, the guy that just totally lost this weekend. I mentioned it before, but Denny Hamlin, my God, I am so sorry, but you're the Above the Yellow Line LVP again. I'm pretty sure it's been twice this season so far, maybe? I might be wrong, but with losing a wheel, speeding on pit road, getting in that wreck that was not his fault, colliding with Cody Ware, there's no other option for me. He's at Joe Gibbs Racing. He should be performing at a top tier level, but they have had such bad luck this season. It's just not looking like top tier right now. So for that reason, Denny Hamlin is my LVP of the week. Now it's time to award the SRI Performance MVP of the week. And personally, I didn't give this to Chase Elliott. I know this is a historic win for Hendrick Motorsports, being the first team to have all 4 drivers win in the first 11 races. But I had to give this to Chris Buescher. Like I mentioned before, he had stage 1 points, stage 2 points in the top 10, and then he had the pole win, and then he finished inside the top 10. For me, with RFK equipment, that is really impressive, and that is something that we have to acknowledge here on Above the Yellow Line. So Chris Buescher, you are the SRI Performance MVP of the week. Now it's time to rate this race above or below the yellow line. Looking at our Twitter results on the poll you all participated in, here is what you had to say. 34% of you said this was a great race, 44% of you wanting the vote said this was a good race, 16% said okay, and 6% said bad. In particular, Mike Mast44 said very entertaining race, considerably better than the last decade of races at Dover. Alex said Goodyear brought a great tire for this race. Was nice to see tire degradation be a factor at Dover again. The next user said absolutely great race, tires made it, passes for the lead, and all over the track. The monster is alive and well. Finally, Ben said, as a Delawarean, it was the best Cup race I've seen on my home track in almost a decade. With an uncertain future given the SMI takeover, Dover desperately needed to put on a good show, and it looks like it did just that. I agree with a lot of your comments here. I wasn't able to watch the whole race, though I was able to listen to all of it, and I was thoroughly entertained. A lot of you all were talking about, well, did this save Dover? In my opinion, Dover didn't really need saving. Of course, it lost it in on the schedule, but I don't necessarily think that was a bad thing. Attendance at the track has been worse and worse over the years, so I think having that one date on the schedule really makes this race a special event. Plus, the next-gen car really enhanced this track. I think the next-gen car has really enhanced the racing that we've seen on all tracks, but short track racing, and of course that package I think needs to be changed or modified in some way, shape, or form. Maybe the tires need changed, I don't really know, but with this being a tire management race, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I love the races where we have to have fuel mileage being concerned. I love the races where we have to see tires being managed. I actually enjoyed what I saw. There were some really good battles for the lead. One thing that comes to mind is Chase Elliott versus Ross Chastain on one of those restarts, and then of course it was stopped by a caution. But that was really exciting to see, and there was also a lot of passing for Dover. So for me personally, I might rate this a little lower than I should have, but in my opinion, this race earns a 70% that is above the yellow line. All right, you all know what time it is. It's time to pump the brakes, take a look at the big storylines from this week, and go down the line presented by PFC Brakes. For me, and I think for all of the fans, the big talk for the weekend that was kind of dimmed down because of Dover's good performance was the late start times. Of course, we all know on Sunday the race started at 3 p.m. and then was rescheduled to Monday after rain hit for noon. And like I said, I know a lot of fans were really angry about this. Why didn't NASCAR postpone this? But from a broadcasting perspective, I have live production experience with sports behind the scenes and in front of a camera, so I can give a non-professional, idea of why this wasn't done with broadcasting and how the scheduling works. Also due to, how are we going to tell the fans in time? So let's break this down. Reason number one, weather is unpredictable. Of course, no one asked Mother Nature, hey, at 3 p.m. on a Sunday when we're racing at Dover, can you rain? Nobody asked Mother Nature to do that, though, yes, we did see that in the schedule coming in. That brings me to point number two. Point number two, Jeff Gluck actually posted a really insightful tweet as to how NASCAR and Fox kind of determine their start times. NASCAR/TV has determined it's worth the risk to start later because of a larger audience towards the evening. Also sharing in another post that NASCAR determined with analytics that they have prepared to lose 2 races per year due to Mother Nature. So to this point, I don't like waking up early on the weekends. I know also for those who go to church on Sundays, church is really early on Sunday morning, so NASCAR is working with a really tricky date here, especially when we have other sports going on Sundays as well. So it's a really hard schedule to balance, but we've seen that NASCAR has shown really good results with these later start times. Though we complain about it, it's showing really good numbers. Talking about other sports, reason number 3, Fox and NASCAR have to work around the entire broadcasting schedule. We can't just have NASCAR move up the time because NASCAR is the only sport on the schedule. It's clearly not. So if we move up the time for 1 or 2 hours for the NASCAR race at Dover, it's going to impact another sport, and then they're going to have to move their time around, so it's not as easy as it looks. Now, I don't know if NASCAR and Fox had negotiated, hey, can we move up the start time a little bit? We moved up the Bristol Dirt Race for 30 minutes, I think. I think it was by 30 minutes we moved up the Bristol Dirt Race. For this one, I don't know if it was even possible for them to move up the time, but then you also have to worry about, the fans at the track, the fans at home. How many people are going to remember and hear about this late change in the scheduling, and is that going to impact our viewership? Is that going to impact fans at the track getting to the track on time? Traffic, you have to think all these things through. So I think NASCAR did what they could do in the moment, but for the future, I think having start time starting around noon or 1 p.m., I know this impacts the West Coast audience, I really know it does, but having those start times at noon or 1 p.m., I think is going to help NASCAR in the future. But however, like I said, they are seeing really good numbers for these later start times. Something for NASCAR to ponder, but what do you think? Finally, on down the line, we got to talk about Truex's uncertain future. Saturday during NASCAR's media time, Bob Pockrass mentioned to Martin Truex Jr. that he has a few weeks to decide what he's going to do with his future. He intermixed that with a question as to how Martin Truex Jr. feels this Next Gen Cars Challenge has been. Here is the video. Take a listen.
I love racing. I love working with my team. Working with my guys. That's always been, the most satisfying part of this job. Working with a group to try to be successful together. That's been a lot of fun. So that's no different now. I don't know that I really think too much about what I like better or worse about the car. It is what it is, and you've got to just kind of deal with it. You know what I mean? So I just try to focus on working with the team and doing the best job I can do for them. And so far it's been fine. Hopefully we can win soon. I mean, it's been it's been a decent year so far. I mean, we've been okay. We've had a couple tough races, but that was to be expected with this. And we've got some good tracks coming up. So if we can do our jobs well, hopefully we can put ourselves in a good position. I don't know that we're the fastest car out there right now, but maybe we can find some stuff.
So Truex never actually addressed, what decision he's going to make. He never leaned towards one side or the other, which is what we expected. But a positive here, he seems to really be enjoying this Gen 7 car, which I know some drivers might not be enjoying it as well, especially those that are close to retiring. So it's really good to see that Martin Truex Jr. still has a hunger in him to figure out this car and really is enjoying his time. This, for me, also brings in a little bit of concern about sponsorship. I'm not as concerned for Martin Truex Jr. because Bass Pro Shops is really loyal to him, and I think as long as Truex is in the fight for wanting to race for wins, I think Bass Pro Shops will as well. But I know Kyle Busch's future is still uncertain. He doesn't have sponsorship yet, so it seems like Ty Gibbs' future might be looking a little brighter if Martin Truex Jr. decides to call it quits after this season with another opening potentially opening up at Joe Gibbs Racing. However, I think it would be an absolute shame to have Martin Truex Jr. out of the car after this year. First off, he's won a championship. For me, in my opinion, if you won a championship, you deserve a full year send-off. That is just my opinion. I know it's not an actual thing, but that's what I think. So I honestly really hope that Martin Truex Jr. stays on until next year and then ends after the 2023 season. I know that it seems like Kevin Harvick's going to be done in the Cup Series after the 2023 season, after he talked about it on Dirty Mo Media, Dale Jr.'s podcast. So we might see 2 drivers leaving us after 2023. Nevertheless, I really hope that Martin Truex Jr. can stick it around this season and then gets a really good send-off because I think Bass Pro Shops is willing to stick with him. So do you think Martin Truex Jr. is going to leave after this season? Does he have another one in him? Maybe 2? Let me know in the comments below, but now it is time to preview the Goodyear 400 with track facts and driver stats presented by Rhino.co. The track length for Darlington is 1.37 miles long. The race length is 293 laps or 400 miles. Stage 1 will be 90 laps, Stage 2 will be over in 95 laps, and the final stage will last 108 laps. Now going into your driver stats, the last driver to win at the track was Truex in May, and then Hamlin in September. The active driver with the most track wins is Denny Hamlin as well with 4 wins. The active driver with the best average finish at the track is Kyle Larson with an average finishing position of 5.5. Then the team with the most track wins is Hendrick Motorsports at 10. Finally, wins by manufacturer, Chevrolet has 41 wins, Ford has 31, and Toyota has 10. All of this information from RacingReference.com. So now looking ahead at Darlington, of course it's throwback week and we're going to have a lot of throwback paint schemes to look at. We already looked at about half of them with Rob Branding on the live stream we did last Friday, so if you missed that, make sure to look it up on this YouTube channel, TobyChristieCom, to see what we thought about the paint schemes, what we liked the worst, what we liked the best. But I really like this comment from Mike Joy. Just my 2 cents, I wish Cup teams were given more leeway with the side number placement for the annual throwback weekend. There's no real downside and we would all enjoy the creativity. I totally agree with Mike Joy here. It is an absolute shame to me when sponsors and teams aren't willing to go all in on these throwback weekends. And of course, I know it kind of messes with brand recognition if you're changing fonts, if you're changing colors for things. But in my opinion, that's what has to be done for throwback weekends. So I love it when teams and their sponsors can go all in and pay homage to drivers past. I definitely have my opinions as to which paint schemes were the worst and which ones were the best. But for me, the best part about this weekend is who we're having in the Fox booth this weekend. Starting stage 1, we have the king himself, Richard Petty. Stage 2, Bobby Labonte will be joining the booth. In the final stage, Awesomeville from Dawsonville, Bill Elliott will be joining the booth in stage 3, rounding out the end of the race. That is so cool, and I was hoping we'd have DW, Larry Mack, and Mike Joy in the booth, for the throwback weekend, just because of me, that would make my heart happy. But this, in my opinion, a little bit better. We're having all-stars in the booth, and for me, that is so exciting. So I'm glad they were able to get these guys into the booth to commentate a little bit, and I hope they add a lot to the broadcast. I'm actually really curious to see what Richard Petty's going to add to the broadcast, because he doesn't really seem like that kind of guy, in my opinion. So I'm very excited to see this come to fruition this weekend at Darlington. Now it's time to close it out with our to watch, to worry for the Darlington weekend, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but Denny Hamlin, I'm going to worry about him. He has the second best average finishing position of all the active drivers at Darlington, but with these consistent bad weeks in a row, and yes, I know he started off Sunday really well at Dover, and then we had the rain delay. I understand that he had a really good car, but then bad luck happened, and we cannot take bad luck into account because it's random. We don't know when it's going to happen, but I want to see him do really well. So Denny Hamlin is the first driver I'm going to be worried about coming this Sunday. Then I'm going to be worried about Joey Logano. Now, I've actually noticed a pattern in his stats. He has 2 good weeks and then 2 bad weeks, and these past 2 weeks have been his bad weeks, finishing outside the top 20. So I'm thinking Darlington, he's going to have 2 good weeks. That's my hope, at least. So all signs point to a good weekend at Darlington, but I can still worry about him. I'm still going to be worried about the 22 of Joey Logano. Finally, with our guys to watch, one of you on Twitter asked me, who outside the cutoff line right now do I see having a good weekend at Darlington? I know he's only 3 points out, but for me, Austin Dillon, I see him having a good weekend over teammate Tyler Reddick. He is really good at Darlington. He has the 7th best average finish amongst the active drivers. He has 2 top 5s and 4 top 10s at the track. He's also been building momentum these past few weeks, so I see him doing really well. Speaking of building momentum, the final guy I'm going to watch this weekend is Erik Jones. He has the 3rd best average finish at this track, and also, like I said, he's been doing really well these past few weeks. He has 4 top 5s and 6 top 10s, plus he's won at Darlington before. I know this is mostly with Joe Gibbs Racing, but he's been able to make a lot out of this Richard Petty Motorsports equipment, so I hope to see him do well this weekend at Darlington. So here are your Darlington to watch, to worry. Let me know in the comments below, and with that, we are done with this episode of Above the Yellow Line, the show where we talk all about the NASCAR Cup Series. I wanted to announce that we will not have a live stream this Friday with racing going on Friday night in the Truck Series, but no need to worry, we will be back after this week, so make sure you stay tuned for news on our latest Above the Yellow Line live streams. In the meantime, make sure to fill the Above the Yellow Line void by following us on our social media pages on Twitter at _TaylorKitchen_, post-race polls and daily questions, and more. Also follow us Above the Yellow Line on Instagram and YouTube for teasers on our upcoming projects and more options to get in on the conversation. Also make sure to check out TobyChristieCom on all social media platforms to find great motorsports content, and TobyChristie.com to hear and read more from the team and your favorite drivers. Last but not least, I want to thank SRI Performance, PFC Brakes, Rhino.co, and DoorDash for supporting Above the Yellow Line and all of us here at TobyChristie.com. You can find all these social media pages in the description below, but before you click on those links, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this with your friends and family, and guys, thank you so much for supporting us here at Above the Yellow Line, and until next time, I'll see ya.